It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. A friend recently challenged me with an agile, not so agile idea for a Friday episode, so I thought I'd share it with you. She and I were having a discussion, and she says, what would happen if we learned everything in our life the way that we learned to walk? I stopped for a minute and thought about it, and I said, that is a curious question. Most of us learn to walk just fine. So why do our schools make learning everything so much of a bigger ordeal? Picture, if you will, a young girl named Sophie. Sophie leans forward and pushes on the sand with her hands. For the briefest of moments, her chunky little thighs take the weight, and she lifts her head, but she's got the balance all wrong, and she tumbles backwards, landing heavily on her bottom with a thud. She has failed, but she's not the slightest bit upset. Instead, she laughs about it and turns to look at her mom, who is laughing too. There's an incredible look in her mother's eye. Wonder, love, joy, and encouragement. Sophie loves that look. Sophie tries again. This time she does terribly. She can't even lift her head properly and her hands slip. She face plants right down into the damp sand. It is a disaster, but for some reason, now it's even funnier. Sophie giggles again as she rolls around and sits up ready for another attempt. This is so much fun. Why is she laughing? Doesn't she realize that a child of almost 18 months, she is now, in the words of an education system, working below the expected standard? According to a World Health Organization report, 50% of all babies worldwide have begun walking by the age of 9.5 months. Sophie isn't even standing on her own yet. Does she have special needs? Perhaps she's just lazy and hasn't been putting the effort in. Should her parents send her to extra classes to get her to walking sooner? Some evening tuition, perhaps, or some medication or something? Of course not. As any parent who's been through all this realizes, almost all babies will learn to walk eventually. There are exceptions, of course. Some children born with obvious developmental disorders will never walk, but pretty much everyone else learns to do it, and how soon they do it doesn't make the slightest difference to the rest of their lives. It doesn't matter as long as they learn to do it. In a Swiss study, they tracked the development of hundreds of babies and children and discovered that a few babies learned to walk as young as 8.5 months, while others were almost 20 months before they learned walking. And how did this almost entire year delay affect them as they grew up? It didn't. Not at all. Not even a little bit. Not one of them. When they started walking independently, it was completely unrelated to their motor skills and their cognitive abilities later in life. Most parents realize this, and that's why Sophie's mom wasn't worried. Instead, she can just enjoy sharing this magical learning process with her daughter, safe in the knowledge that Sophie will get the hang of it eventually. Compare that with how Sophie will learn when she goes to school. She was given as much time as needed when she was learning to walk, but now, as school deadlines really matter, if she falls more than 3 or 4 months behind some arbitrarily set targets in math, reading, writing, etc., she'll be regarded by her teachers as failing. And once this happens, she's really in trouble. She may lose confidence and start to believe it's too hard for her. Children who are not making a grade in school may be given extra help in lessons, extra tuition, extra resources. If they're really lucky, they may even get extra attention too. Maybe even an extra adult to work with them. The one thing that they are never really given is extra time. Time can't be given. Because it seems school isn't just about learning things, it's about learning things before everyone else moves on. It's a race, and you got to keep up. While Sophie's experience of learning to walk was characterized by fun, experimentation, and encouragement, her experience at school is characterized by impatience and people who are impatient in general altogether. Would it be such a bad thing if we just did as we did what we did when we were learning to walk? We took a bit more time over teaching and learning. If we didn't insist on everyone learning so many different topics in math and at such an early age, for example, leaving some of it until the children were older and more of them were likely to understand it, we might find that while we learned fewer things, the things we did learn, we learned way better and didn't leave any children behind. Perhaps then we wouldn't have such a crisis in mental health among our people, especially our young people, and might also have a bit more time to do all the learning we always we and to do all the other learning we always told by being told children should spend more time doing at school, like financial literacy or discerning truths from lies or using social media and AI with safety and confidence. How about studying nature or learning to cook healthy food? First aid, I can make that list go on and on and on. One criticism of this approach is that children who do not manage to master a skill, such as times tables, will get bored waiting for their peers to catch up. While that is where we have to make the more innovative design in our schools, making learning more personalized and allowing space for those children who've learned a new skill to enjoy applying it and helping their friends who are stuck. If you learn to collaborate a little better, it's going to help everyone. After all, when a baby learns to walk, they don't get bored with it. They just enjoy applying their newfound skill, and then they encourage their younger siblings to learn it too. I think we could learn a lot from studying more closely the way we learn to walk. So let's take a couple of minutes and look at it. Let's look at it. If you looked at a home video of yourself or a loved one, a child learning to walk, you'll notice a few things. The first thing you'll notice is they fall over a lot. They're trying and failing constantly, which isn't surprising considering how tricky standing up and walking can be. What is surprising is how readily they get up again without seeming to be at all disheartened or fazed by experience of failing. In fact, they often find it funny. They are not only unconcerned by their failures, they are entertained in them. How might we maintain that attitude towards learning later in life? Coming at number two, their efforts are celebrated and encouraged by everyone around them. If you're lucky enough to witness a baby taking their first steps, take a moment to take your eyes off the magic happening in front of you and look at the parents, grandparents, siblings, and friends who are all watching. I wonder if we ever really celebrate our children's achievements with the same amount of genuine excitement, encouragement, and love as we do when we watch them take their first steps. What if we could keep replicating that level of encouragement and joint celebration throughout their entire lives whenever they learn something new and interesting? Maybe babies have something to teach the rest of us. Maybe they realize more than we do the importance of taking your time, laughing at your failures, and encouraging others with genuine love and excitement. Maybe, just maybe, if we learn to do everything we can the way we learn to walk, learning itself might not seem as painful as it sometimes seemed at school. Maybe instead it would feel easy, well, like a walk in the park. That's going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at agiledad.com. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next week, do take care. Bye now.